Thank you. That was so beautiful. For all of these gifts, we are truly grateful. The gifts that we have just received in the collection and the gifts of this fabulous music. And we dedicate all these gifts as we affirm our lives in community. Please expedite our request. We have only just noticed the world is ending. With those searing words, I begin the sermon, wondering, as some of you might be too, what can we possibly say today in the face of all that challenges us? On the cusp of a new year, we usually try to feel hopeful and resolute. After enduring the years of the pandemic, suffering losses and living with uncertainty, getting through ongoing political turmoil, besetting and threatening our democracy, and wars continuing to destroy the lives of thousands, displacing generations of people and unleashing horror. We may be forgiven for not feeling particularly hopeful this New Year's Eve. Indeed, we require those better angels answer our prayers right quick. There is so much pain in the world that it's hard to know what to do, and nearly impossible to see the way forward to understand what our role is in all of this. What is our job? What will guide us? Where is our map? There's a book I had to read in seminary, so it's a book I read a while back, called We Make the Road by Walking, Conversations on Education and Social Change by Myles Horton and Paulo Freire. Horton was the founder of the Highlander Folk School, now the Highlander Research and Education Center. And Freire was a Brazilian educational theorist. The Highlander Folk School in Tennessee was founded in 1932, focused on organizing unemployed and working people. By the 1950s and 60s, the center had become an incubator for the anti-segregationist civil rights movement. In 1987, folks at Highlander were working for peace and justice through developing grassroots organizing for progressive change. I will just pause there a minute and say, as I read those words, I realize how, I want to say, little has changed, how we're still doing the same things, trying to develop grassroots organizing for progressive change. With the intent of writing a book, Horton joined with Freire in a series of conversations in an attempt to capture the essence of the historical work the school had done and was still engaged in at the intersection of education and social change. Horton's approach was grounded in the small, local, grassroots education model exemplified by Highlander, centered in the community and locating itself squarely outside the formal schooling systems of the United States. Freire's method, on the other hand, was focused and rooted within the university and state-sponsored education programs of his native Brazil. In their very different work, they had come to similar conclusions. Real liberation can only come through participatory education where people learn and act together. But their starting points and their situations and communities were so very different. To bring these divergent but similar philosophies together into one book seemed like an impossible task. So they started in conversation, without a firm agenda. They knew there were some theoretical issues they wanted to explore. There was at least an idea of what they wanted to get across. Somehow, though, they could not get started. They couldn't see a way to get where they thought they were headed, where they needed to be. Have you ever been there? Working on something where you have a vision of the end point, but you're stuck almost at the starting line, unsure of what to do next? Like many of us, when faced with such a challenge, they started to make lists of what they needed to cover. And then they tried to prioritize those lists. They kept at it, but they seemed no closer to their goal, no closer to that important conversation they both felt they needed to have in order to get their message across. So here I'm imagining a room much like many of the rooms I visited or worked in when I was a congregational consultant, with every inch of wall space full of newsprint, covered in words written in colored markers and littered with Post-it notes. In what seems like a moment of frustration, Frary challenged Horton. Yes, everything you recognize as something important. I think that even though we need to have some outline, I am sure we make the road by walking. I am sure we make the road by walking. I imagine that they needed to winnow lists of important objectives. If one was reluctant to let go of certain ideas, they couldn't get to the work at hand. I've been there, and no doubt you have too, where everything that needs to be done is something important that must be attended to. Everything now. Each idea, each thought, each task is so very important and worthy, and now we may not be sure where to turn or what to do next. Choosing which and where and how proves daunting. We can't see the way ahead, at least not clearly. We may have a firm but still a little vague idea of where we want to go. And there are several important items that will need our attention. But first, we need a path to get us to that destination, our goal. No elected official or professional leader can give us the exact perfect plan on how to get where we need to go. That is something we do for ourselves and something we must do together. I think that even though we need some outline, Frary said, I am sure we make the road by walking. This saying comes from the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, and it's as if he is speaking to us right now, here, just as his words called Horton and Frary back to their work and out of their writer's block. The words call us to brave the unknown, inviting us out of our boxed-in corners, our expectations, out of impossible places and worrisome situations. Machado frames it this way in his poem. Wayfarer, the only way is your footsteps, there is no other way. Wayfarer, there is no way, you make the way as you go. As you go, you make the way, and stopping to look behind, you will see the path that your feet will never travel again. Wayfarer, there is no way, only foam trails on the sea. Wanderer, another translation says, your footsteps are the road and nothing more. So when we get anxious about the way ahead, of all that has to be done or when we will have answers, we may need to allow the path to reveal itself in our footsteps. In all things, issues or concerns at home, when we want our personal situation to be settled, mended, or improved, or those ambitious goals of ensuring social welfare of everyone, when will they be agreed upon and met? We don't know. But it's there. for us to do, it might be helpful to know that as important as the end point may be, the road, the path, the footsteps are our focus. What should we do? How will we get there? I do believe the path becomes clearer as long as we begin taking those steps. They may be unsure, hesitant, wobbly. But it is important to keep going for our families, for our children, for our community, for our world. But still, the question nags at me, precisely which way is that road going? Yes, we are the ones making the way forward, and it is all up to us, which feels like a burden sometimes. But I think there is more to consider as we venture forth. We don't want to trudge or stumble forward, unperceptive of anything around us, and inadvertently arrive in a thicket of brambles and thorns. So there's this combination of venturing forward, not knowing the path, but also taking some care to understand what lies before us as we move out. And we don't want to veer off onto separate paths if we're together in a group, hoping we will somehow all arrive at the same destination, whether we go north or south or east or west or some combination of those cardinal directions. We need to be aware, to notice what we encounter along the way, to take it all into account, to let it change us if need be. We need to be comfortable with ambiguity, to be willing to take the turns, to keep moving forward, making progress sometimes, falling back at others. Perhaps we can even revel in the mystery that is before us and enjoy the surprises along the way. To recognize that when we stumble or fall, or make a turn that needs to be rethought, and we have to retrace our steps and start again, that in all of this, we keep going, finding our way, keeping faith with our companions on this journey. We set out and make the way even if the path is not totally clear. Even when there are obstacles we must remove or maneuver around. To do this well means that we need several things beyond a good compass. We need each other. We need to trust one another. We need to have a common understanding of where we are headed, and that the path may be quite different than we expected. And we will have to be okay with that. And we have to be aware that we may disagree on the individual details about what we need to carry on this journey and how we ought to equip ourselves, or even about precisely where we are headed. Yet we will move out onto this path anyway. That's what human beings do. Wayfarer, there is no way, you make the way as you go. Another poet, David Whyte, wrote this about the Camino de Santiago. His words about following the path echo this theme. And here's part of the poem from his collection called Pilgrim. The road seen, then not seen, the hillside hiding, then revealing the way you should take. The road dropping away from you, as if leaving you to walk on thin air, then catching you, holding you up when you thought you would fall. And the way forward always, in the end, the way that you followed, the way that you came, the way that carried you into your future, that brought you to this place, no matter that it sometimes took your promise from you, no matter that it always had to break your heart along the way. the sense of having walked from far inside yourself out into the revelation, to have risked yourself for something that seemed to stand both inside you and far beyond you, and that called you back to the end of the only road you could follow, walking as you did in your rags of love, and speaking in the voice that by night became a prayer for safe arrival, so that one day you realized that what you wanted had already happened, and long ago, and in the dwelling place in which you lived in before you began, and that every step along the way you had carried the heart and the mind and the promise that first set you off and then drew you on, and that you were more marvelous in your simple wish to find a way than the gilded roofs of any destination you could reach. Even if we can't see the way forward, we know that there is something of great importance, something critical that must be dealt with, some great love that is calling us on. And so we set out, we try, even if the way seems way beyond our control or influence, and even though we may be unsure of the outcomes, and we see that there are risks, as there surely are in any worthwhile endeavor, we set out, we try. The path may not even lead to what we thought we wanted or needed in the end. The wanderings are indirect routes to understanding and meaning, even if nothing is clear or forthright. But no task can be completed or accomplished, no adventure or journey begun, unless we summon the courage to begin. So recall the reading that I shared just moments ago, which petitioned our better angels, our best intentions, our inner self, to intervene and help us make our way. Reverend Dennison also imagines a response to that letter, and I'd like to share that with you now. It's a letter from our better angels. Dear one, we have received your letter, and we hate to tell you, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your requests as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though they didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You also are not wrong, and when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused, and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, your better angels, calling to you, calling you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world, first be sure you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free. Sincerely, your better angels. We will go forward. Choices and decisions made, detours traveled, and being human, we look back. The path that was once invisible is revealed. The past behind us is instructive. When we look back, we may feel rueful, regretting some choices here and there, and we may feel justly proud of how and where we have come. We can feel encouraged to continue on, even as the path remains unclear, or becomes rockier, or even dangerous. We might take heart from knowing how far we have come, what road, hills, and valleys, rocky and smooth, we have traveled. We must remember that we are more marvelous in our simple wish to find a way. And then we may notice something. We may notice something else about this road. We have not walked it alone. Amen and blessed be.